Hello, everyone. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Sharky for re-inviting me back to give this talk. I've updated it since because I know there's some people who've previously seen it. So I thought you'd give you some something to worth see it again with. First of all, my name's Max. I work at Canva. I'm a backend platform engineer. But in my spare time, I do a lot of data visualization, particularly in notebooks. I think they're a wonderful platform. I find them very interesting. Another thing I've been doing is I've been reading about HTMX and HATOS, which is hypermedia as the application of hypermedia as the engine of application state. Now, what I have come to believe is that, HTML is actually just a wonderful hypertext format. I think we failed to, appreciate what we've been given with it. It's just really wonderful. It's got semantic elements, it's got styling, it's got interactivity, all built into one single file format. And there's no group of people less appreciative of this format than scientists. I think they're doing a really bad job of using it. They do a few separate things. First of all, they'll do all their data processing and analysis in like a notebook format like Jupyter, RStudio, Pluto, or Observable. And they'll be like, well, that was great. I'm actually going to move to an entirely different format. I'm going to do LaTeX. I'm going to use like Google Docs or Word, God forbid. And then once they're done with that, they move to another format and they export it to PDF. And then they make it inaccessible and you can't use a screen reader against it. They just ruin everything, Now, I think people have documented how HTML can be used to like typeset things, but they've never really like documented how it can be used as a platform for data analysis or interactive data analysis or data visualization. So I'm going to give the scientists a break. No one's actually showed them that there's a better way. And this talk is going to be documentation of that. So let's do it. I'm going to build this demonstration from scratch in a single file. So kicking that off, we need cells. That's what a notebook's made out of. So I'm going to steal two things from other people. I'm going to steal a technique from this page is a truly naked, beautifulest HTML quine. I'm just going to zoom in slightly because I can see some people squinting. And we've got a CSS class that we're defining in a style block that then it styles itself with. And fundamentally, it's a class called Echo, and we've marked a style with Echo. And it displays it as a block because normally styles aren't visible; they're hidden. So we'll just override the display status and we'll say show it inline. So we've just put a style block in the middle of the document font. We add some styling that makes it readable, and it adds a font with a syntax highlight. And the font actually does the syntax highlighting. We're not using highlight.js or some other library. The font is just got a bunch of ligatures that passes the HTML AST and does ligature replacement with independent colors. So, well, that's really useful. Why is it useful? Well, it means that we can just edit the style because it's got content editable on it. And we get syntax highlighting in our content editable block. And so it's reactive. Congratulations, we've got reactive styles with just this. This is all we need for reactive styles. How are we getting this like kind of style? Well, I've just added a bunch of before and after attributes that redisplay the attributes that are applied to it. So it's a style element that's showing itself in line in the document. Kind of cool, right? But the useful part that it's giving us is echo. We're going to use echo a bunch. I've cooked it. Sorry. Where were we? Here we are. There we are. Sorry. So because the style is content editable, we want scripts to be content editable as well, but scripts don't reevaluate when you edit them, unlike styles. So I've defined this function called reevaluate, and then I've registered for all scripts with the echo class on it. Whenever you edit a script, we blow up the script you've just edited, copy all its content, and insert a new script straight in where the old one was. And that forces the script to reevaluate. And we'll see why that's useful a little bit down the track. And this is a bit of a scary block, but this is where I wrap the observable runtime. Now, so what the observable runtime is it's roughly analogous to like Google Sheets. You know, you've got a bunch of cells and you can define cell dependencies on each other. And those cells are named, they have some sort of name. And when you edit a cell, it propagates changes to all of them. So I'm using a script module, I'm pulling in the observable runtime. As you can see, I can see the script because it's marked echo. It's being displayed inline. I've defined this new function called cell. It takes names, it takes things it depends on, it takes a definition, and it takes this visibility state. And if it's marked visible, we constructed this thing called an inspector. I'll tell you what that is in a second. And it does two things. If it's a name that is never seen before, it defines a new cell. And if it's a name that it has seen before, it recovers the old one. This is how the reevaluation is going to work. And then finally, what does the inspector do? The inspector takes the value of the cell and displays it above the script element. As you can see here, it creates a div, gets the element, the script element, and then appends its status. So putting that all together, here is a cell that has a counter state. It's a little while loop. It's an async generator. Every 1,000 milliseconds, it increments a value and it yields that new value. And the state of that counter is displayed above the cell. And then what I can do is I can say, well, here's another cell. This is a fizzbuzz cell. The fizzbuzz cell depends on the counter. And then depending on the counter state, it displays a value. In this case, it's a HTML DOM element that's getting passed by a template literal, and it's being displayed above the cell. So in not much code, we've got kind of reactive data flow in our notebook. Now, if I just go back, there's something I forgot to show you. It's content editable, right? And I've shown you there before, if you reevaluate a cell, it changes the value. So if I delete this, I can edit the cell. It's faster now. And then I can come back here and I can change that. And then that repropagates the cell to the dependent cells. So the really great part is if you're shipping an interactive article or a notebook, this means that people who are reading it might be like, well, actually, I don't agree with your conclusions. I'm going to play around with the code or the visualizations that you've shipped. It's actually a really useful affordance for a lot of people to be able to edit the code. So we don't, a few other things, we don't have to show the cells. We just leave echo out, and it's just a little reactive cell that's being hidden, and we're propagating data between our cells. Alternatively, we can have a silent cell. We can show the code, but we don't have to display the value. And then also, and then also we can define cells out of order. It's not ordered data flow in any way. We can have a cell, depending on a previous cell, we can do all sorts of scary stuff. So what's like some meaningfully useful things we can do? Like we can define plots. Here I'm importing observable plot and a bunch of numbers, and I've plotted a chart. That's all I need to display that plot. And obviously, because it's depending on counter, it's the lines moving along. What are some other things I can do? Well, the observable library has like LaTeX, so I can import a tech literal and I can render some LaTeX. That's good if you do math. What if I don't like HTML? I want to write some markdown. Well, yeah, here's your markdown. Of course, this is still editable. I can content editable the markdown. I can do graph viz, graphs. I don't know what that's about. And also finally, like each of these cells, they can fail, and they also can take asynchronous definitions. You can await or you can yield from generators in each of these cell definitions. So coming down here, here's a cell that yields a promise, and this cell displays a loading state while that promise is resolving. So you can do asynchronous data viz if you want, and that kind of stuff. Or we can have cells fail, and that failure propagates through the independent cell kind of chains. Now, this is where I go, look, you don't have to do data viz in IPython Notebook. You can do fun stuff like, well, WebAssembly is cool, right? And so is SQLite. We can compile SQLite to WebAssembly and then just use the WebAssembly SQLite client. So here's a plot of track lengths in an album catalog. And how it works is I get a URL of a SQLite file that I've just posted on my own website. I use a WebAssembly-backed SQLite client. I run a query, and then I pop the results accordingly. Now, the cool part is, well, I don't really like how this query's turned out. Like, I don't really care about these outliers. So I'm going to come through here, actually, whoops. And then I'm going to blur, and then I can rerun the SQL query, and I get a new chart. Kind of cool. So what if I'm like a whinger and I don't want to write JavaScript and I want to write Python for some reason? Well, we can compile Python to WebAssembly, and we can give all the data scientists all their favorite little libraries, and they can write Matplotlib for some reason. Well, here's a bit of scary amount of marshalling code to get that working, but ultimately, here's some Python here. Like, we're importing SQLite, we're importing pandas, we connect to the database again, we've reached out of the WebAssembly context and queried a database, and then we've constructed a plot, and then we've saved an image and we've exported it. And to prove that this is actually Python that I'm running in the browser, like, I can edit this and deselect it. Like, this isn't smoke and mirrors. Give me a second. It is Python. Yeah, there we are, right? It's not smoke and mirrors, right? It's real Python running in a real browser. And then R, yeah, I don't know. It's R. It's not really that different. It's literally the same code, just R, which is cool. So people can write R as well. Now, this is a cool part, like interactivity. So observable, because this is the observable runtime, and observable is like a venture-backed business, they did figure out how to do interactivity in the notebooks. And they built this really cool library called inputs. Now, inputs are kind of funny. When you define they use this thing called view of. What view of does is it defines two cells for an input. It defines a cell for the DOM, and it defines a cell for the DOM element itself, actually the input, and another cell for the value that input is yielding. So I kind of concoct this kind of helper function that does that for you, defines a view of cell and just the name cell. In practice, that looks like this. We say this script has an ID view of range, and then we have the view of range cell. And we define like a range input. And then when I wiggle this input, I can say, well, this range pot depends on range. So I can wiggle it around. That's view of range is the input itself, and you can see it's displayed. And then range is the actual value of that input, and I can wiggle that around. So that's kind of cool. You know, we can build inputs. And then mutability is kind of funky. It's like, well, we've got purely functional one unidirectional data flow. Like, we have a cell and the data flows in one direction. What if you want to like change and like propagate data in a different direction, like up? Like, what if we do like refs of some description, or like mutable values, and then those mutable values propagate and do like imperative value modification? Here's something I kind of extracted from the depths of the observable source code. Long story short, this is we define a property that, like, if you modify it, it causes a generator to yield a new value, and then we almost create a generator that subscribes to that change, and then we put that in a cell, and it gets all kind of gnarly. But the result of that is we can create a mutable ref, and we can bind that to the window. And here we have another view function that defines two inputs, and they modify that ref accordingly, just using, you know, they just mutably alter it. And then what we can do is like the buttons work, and then we can say, well, this cell depends on that ref. The cool part is as well, like, you know, mutables are also modifiable. Like, we can just hand edit it if we really want. And it redefines the cell and it propagates it accordingly. It's quite cool, if I do say so myself. So yeah, like, what's next? Well, last time I gave the talk, I said I'd make this a library. And I did. I called it Selene. And I packaged it up. It's on JSR. Anyone has used JSR? Like it's sick. Like it's awesome. Like you just define a mod TS file, it transpiles it, it publishes it to everything, generates API docs for you. Like it's so easy. It's so easy. So I did that. What else did I do? Well, I wrapped up all this fun little functionality into a single like script that you can just like dump in some random HTML file. And like you get imports, you get your HTML literal, the defining DOM elements. You get like this module called Selene that defines all the fun stuff on it. Get a style sheet that makes cells look cool, which includes all like the echo stuff. I pull out some of the kind of displaying the scripts above with, you'll see in a second actually. And I also added a style sheet, like something that vaguely looks like Typist or LaTeX or some sort of like paper that you wouldn't be like fired if you presented in front of a bunch of people. So once again, like here's the new API. It's vaguely the same, but now we have Selene cell. And we have echo and reflect. Reflect shows this script above, like this kind of like the fact that you can see the script. And here's like me just like demoing the API, like echo just shows a cell inline, reflect shows the style. We have all our favorites. We have the cell that you saw before. We have view of, which is, you know, it's the same, right? We have a silent, which is the one you saw before, where it just doesn't display the cell's value above the script. We have mutables, all the favorites, but importantly, it also comes with its own style sheet. Just looks cool. You can just drop it into a random HTML document. It looks fun. And this is something I figured out like literally 10 minutes ago. I was like, well, wait a minute, could that work? You can like define like things and you could just have like a details element, like show the code. So I think it's quite useful because you could have a bunch of visualizations. You don't really want to show everyone the code. And if they're really curious, they can just hit show code and it goes book. And you know, I didn't mark it content editable. Anyway, if it was, I could delete it and it would show it. It'd be cool. Yeah, that's the talk. That's it. Thank you.
That was amazing. It was great when we saw it last time, and even better now you put some extra work into it. Thank you for your extra time on that. I'm pretty sure that we'll have somebody with a microphone walking around the room ready to ask the folks for questions of you.
Yeah, 100%. All right, got one already.
Just want to note quickly, you were running R in the browser there. I didn't think R compiled to WebAssembly. Am I missing something, or were you using something else?
What's it called? It's called WebR. Yeah. I had troubles with ggplot too. I couldn't get that rendering, so I just used the off-the-shelf plotting. So it's not that mature at the moment, I don't think. Yeah.
Have a look at them. We've got a couple more people.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Hi, I'm just curious if you can explain a little bit better how that syntax highlighting works.
Yeah. So there's an article, font with built-in syntax highlighting. I think the scary part is like this is how they do like the ligature replacement. And it's just frightening. I don't know if it's like, I don't know if it recursively works or if it's got like some set depth and then just said like hard code, like try and do it to like depth 100 or something. But yeah, they do some like really terrifying things and they're really pushing like open type. So open, like, you know, effectively open type says like you can have these ligature replacements. Like let's say if I put F and F together, it like gets combined into its own like single replacement ligature. And so they have a bunch of those at least for all the different syntax elements and like what they should look like under different contexts.
So have they built that to support like a set of like known languages like CSS?
They support HTML. Like, so it's specifically a HTML highlighter, which means it also includes CSS and JavaScript and top level HTML.
Okay, but it also like syntax highlighted the Python like.
It shouldn't have,
Oh,
but it did. It saw tokens that it thought it could syntax highlight. Yeah. But yeah, it is. It's actually done a decent job. So it's fine, you know. I think there was a question right at the back.
That was great talk.
Thank you.
What does content editable do again? Sorry, I missed it in the beginning.
Content editable is like if I come and add content editable to this, I can now like edit it. That's just like an attribute you can add to anything.
Watches the content and updates it.
No, it just turns it into like almost an input field. But this I think the thing you're interested might be the fact that with scripts, where are we? Here, we're saying, when we do on a script that is marked content editable, you can edit it, and then as soon as you
Compare it, and then if it's different, then replace it.
I think it's just just take the new content, get rid of the old script, create a new script with the new content, and that forces its reevaluation.
Nice. Cool. Thanks.
Oh, Brent, I think that's all questions. One thing I will say is, this is like production ready. Like I've got TypeScript types, it's got docs. Let me know how you feel about it. Dump some issues on my GitHub. It's maxbo.me/Celine. It's very tiny up the top. But yeah, really keen to see if anyone finds some use in it. I've used it for a bunch of my own side projects, or at least I've used Observable, and I found it very valuable. So yeah, thank you.
Well, that's amazing. Thanks, Maxwell. Can we give a big round of applause, please?